start the recording. Welcome to today's webinar, Unlocking Business Value with Microsoft Entra and Entra Suite, where we'll be exploring the Microsoft Entra ID and the significant impact it can have on your organization with a focus on business value it can give you, as well as how to help you with your zero trust perspectives. In an era where flexibility and security are paramount, Microsoft Entra ID emerges as a pivotal solution that bridges the gap between accessibility and protection. Imagine a world where workforce enjoys the freedom to work from anywhere, be it the office, the home, the cafe, without compromising on security. With Microsoft Entra, the vision becomes a reality. As we delve into the features and benefits today, you'll discover how it offers unparalleled control over access management, ensuring that the right individuals have the access to the right resources at the right time. This comprehensive solution is designed to mitigate risks associated with unauthorized access through sophisticated tools like just-in-time access, privileged identity management, and Defender for Identity. By integrating advanced technologies such as behavioral analytics, machine learning, Microsoft Entra ID not only enhances security, but also streamlines operations. We'll talk about that today. The result is a robust framework that empowers your organization to maintain a secure and efficient environment while fostering productivity. Throughout this session today, we'll explore how the Microsoft Entra can help you with a zero trust architecture approach, consolidating costs and modernizing your ID infrastructure, all while improving user experience and ensuring consistent security policies are applied. With features like automated access reviews and real-time threat detection, you can now confidently navigate the complexities of today's digital landscape. As a takeaway today, we hope that you see how Entra ID can help with a zero trust strategy to the next level and pave the way to a more secure and flexible identity solution. So with that said, I've got Adam Oakes with us today. He is the delivery manager for our managed services. I'm sure if you've met Adam, you definitely will not forget him. If you're utilizing Planet's managed services, you probably run into him, and he's an incredible knowledge and resource for M365 security. So today, thank you for joining me today, Adam. We appreciate you having you on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to kind of talking about different ways that Entra can really empower organizations. And specifically, when we get to the demo portion, we'll be taking a look at some of the most leveraged solutions inside of Entra Suite and Entra itself that are really helping to upscale the security and the approach that some of our clients that are probably the most forward thinking when it comes to their security and compliance bring. So excited to kind of get into that and talk about that a little bit more.
Thanks, Adam. So we got a full agenda, so let's get started. So first things first, how do you pronounce this word, right? I've heard it all different ways, two different ways, basically, right? We hear, is it the word like you're entering a building, like Entra, or is it the word like you have to go on a ride, like Entra? I know I've been saying it wrong for a while now, so I just wanted to settle this for once and for all. It is Entra. It's Entra to enter, to gain access, which makes sense, right? So there you have it, folks. Entra signifies Microsoft's aim to enable users to access any application or resource with their identity. And I apologize in advance if I mess up today. Some habits are hard to break. Our agenda today consists of an overview of the Entra over of the whole system, right? So what is Microsoft Entra? We're going to talk about what's included in P1, the business value of it, what's included in Entra P2, the business value of that. Then we're going to get into a demo where you heard Adam just talk about. We're going to look at things like risky users, conditional access, risk-based policies, just-in-time and privileged identity management. And then as a sneak peek at the very end of the show, we're going to talk about the Entra Suite, which is a new product that it's been around a little bit. I'm not sure how many folks have actually gotten started using it yet. It is a different license model. Adam's going to just show the interface, at least to the identity governance dashboard, which is definitely going to be something cool to look at. Then we'll lead into a quick peek at the new Entra Suite, like I mentioned. And of course, we save time for questions and feedback. So in general, Microsoft Entra helps organizations secure access for identities, whether remote or in the office, to any multi-cloud or on-premise resources. With a comprehensive identity and network access solutions from Microsoft Entra, you can confidently establish zero trust access controls, secure access from your workforce, secure access for your customers and partners, and access for workloads. Think of these as non-human entities like service accounts and principals. Microsoft Entra product family also includes Obviously, what we just talked about, the Entra IDs, which we'll get into some detail, the Microsoft Entra External ID, the Entra Workload ID, and then the Entra Permissions Management. Some of you may not even have heard of these things yet. And then finally, we're going to talk about the new suite, which obviously includes things like ID protection, which is really just a rehashing of the ID Plan 2 stuff, ID governance, which is a new era, and then verified ID, which has some really cool potential, internet access, and private access. Were you going to say something, Adam?
I was just going to say verified ID is super cool. I don't know
Yeah.
any clients that are using it yet, but that is the one feature that I think, especially as it gets a little bit more approachable licensing wise,
Yeah.
I fully expect to kind of explode over the next 5 years.
Awesome. So these Microsoft Entra products all work towards a unified platform to establish zero trust, secure workforce, secure customer and partner access, as I mentioned. So which license you has really, determines what you can do with it. A couple of things to be aware of about some of these solutions today. Microsoft Entra External ID is the new name for Azure AD external identities. If you've been buying those in the past and that's how they're in your tenant, just know that effective May 1st, you'll no longer be able to purchase those Azure AD external users. You're going to have to start converting those into the new naming, the new SKUs of the Entra external IDs. And it's also the new name for Azure AD B2B as well. So Entra will be taking on a new name there as well. These are both still being done in the Microsoft Entra admin portal in the workforce tenant. Microsoft Entra permission management, something that maybe people aren't aware of, but that's probably a good thing because from what I understand, Microsoft, what it is actually is permissions management across multiple cloud services, right? So, but unfortunately, Microsoft has put an end to this product as of April of this year. You're no longer able to purchase this, and if you're actually using it, they will no longer be supporting it after October 1st. They're actually going to be outsourcing it, or another company is taking it over for them, but it won't be part of the Microsoft ecosystem anymore. So just a heads up on that. If you're actually using any of the Microsoft Entra permission management, that's something to be aware of.
Yeah,
and then lastly, go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, go ahead. You can finish.
No, I was just going to move on to the next item.
Sure. So I was just going to say, I wanted to give a special shout out to the first column here. This is a concept you've probably heard thrown around multiple times, the idea of zero trust. In general, this is the direction that most major cloud providers and most security experts are moving towards with modern deployments. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard that buzzword or even working towards that inside of your own organization. But the general idea around zero trust is that you don't trust anyone and everyone has to essentially prove or get access the hard way. But it's really a concept about how you architect your security platform. And Microsoft has done a great job of building that into the core identity of some of the stuff we're going to talk about here in Entra. So in general, zero trust is, and has been the new craze and where everyone's going. But a lot of the updated compliance standards really kind of are written towards that in mind. So we're going to be paying special attention to zero trust and what that means during this presentation.
Thanks, Adam. Perfect. Yeah, we're really talking about the business value here of the Entra Suite, and that's obviously a huge part of this. So let's move on to what's the building blocks of Entra. Let's start off with Entra ID Free, and understand the capabilities of the Entra Free, and then we'll go up from there, right? So this is available for all the lower end SKUs like Business Basic, Business Standard, and has very limited functionality. You can use the security defaults here with Entra Free, but they have to be applied to all users. There's no like this set gets these permissions, this set gets this. It's all or nothing, and they all have to use MFA, and they can only use the Authenticator app. You cannot modify those security defaults either for users or groups. So it's very limited. It has some basic capabilities for very low-end customer requirements, but obviously it moves up from there. And so this is obviously included in all your low-end SKUs. If there's anything else you want to talk about there, Adam, at all?
No, I mean, it's kind of interesting to see how this has developed over time. Like 2 years ago, if you had the Entra ID Free, you couldn't even access the security baselines that were built out inside of conditional access.
Right.
You basically had to do individual per user MFA. So even though they allowed you to do MFA, it was a clunkier version than what it used to be. But I think you hit the nail on the head. This is the free offering that comes with any side you're getting. Think of this as the out-of-the-box cloud identity that you're getting. And some of what Microsoft is kind of determining is the bare minimum security stuff every client should be doing in their eyes.
Excellent. And just one other keynote here. I want to make sure that you guys pick this up. If you've never been to this website along the bottom here, this m365maps.com, this cutout here on the right here where it says Entra ID free, the blue thing, this is a website that is geared totally to licensing. So if you want to know more about what's included in certain licenses, go to that website. You'll be blown away by how easy it is to understand licensing. I won't say easier, but it'll be more
visual, at least.
More visually understandable about what's included. And when you have a question about one of these blocks, you can just click on it. It takes you right to there for more information. So just a super helpful resource. If you've never seen it, I just wanted to offer that up. Moving on to Entra Plan, Entra Plan 1, right? And this is what most people were seeing that takes, security seriously. It can be bought standalone, or it's obviously included in M365 E3 or G3. Everything in there is with the free tier is there, but then it enhances it, right? So now we start looking at introducing conditional access and the ability to tune access policies. And you can start doing things like group management and assignment of licenses, and obviously more security reporting. I know you're a big fan of self-service password resets, right, Adam, and other items in this block of capabilities.
And anything that lets the IT staff not have to do as many, bottom barrel requests, I'm always a fan of being an IT admin my whole life. I think there's multiple things inside of this plan that are really valuable. So this is what comes by default with the E3 or G3 licensing if you have it. So if you're buying, an enterprise plan and have that, you're getting all this stuff. There's multiple things in here though that I see as super valuable that a lot of customers probably leverage not realizing is technically a part of the Entra ID Plan 1. Stuff like third-party MFA immigration, if you have apps going through that are enterprise apps registered in, having that seamless integration there. Windows Autopilot is another one. If your users are using, if your users are using laptops, Windows Autopilot is really the modern way to manage it. You're kind of getting away from group policies. It's getting away from, okay, we need to ship all of our laptops to our office and image them before we ship them out to users. You can just ship them to users directly. And then you kind of mentioned this in the lead-in, but all the other options you get if you want to do MFA other than just the authenticator. Now, I am a true security IT admin at heart, so I would argue the authenticator is better than most of the other ones, but that's not practical for a lot of businesses. So being able to do stuff like SMS and things like that really does make it more approachable for a lot of other companies. And anything that actually gets more people using multi-factor authentication is probably the path to go. So a lot of good things here. The final shout out I'll give, any larger organization that has their whole environment up there, having Entra ID Connect Health, which is the predecessor of Azure AD Connect Health. If you have an on-prem AD and you're using Azure AD Connect or Entra ID Connect to sync it up there, having that health client that can help you diagnose the problems. I've been on 2 different Sev1 issues or Sev A issues over the last month and a half related to identity and stuff syncing up. Having that Connect Health tool is big. So also nice to see that there.
Yeah, and thanks for doing the shout out to third-party MFA integration. I mean, it just makes sense, right? Like, why wouldn't you use the same solution for multiple, SaaS offerings and things like that? So, and then the Windows Autopilot, another thing we're seeing lots of customers starting to use and has great operational efficiencies and getting desktops and laptops out the door and things like that. So awesome. Thanks for. And again, this is the first layer that you get conditional access at, right? So from here we go up, right? So what's the big differences now in Entra Plan 2? This can be bought either standalone or with your M365 E5 G5 licenses, and it's also included in Business Premium, right? So here's where we start seeing the support of zero trust principles, right? This plan adds automation and risk-based conditional access policies, which I know Adam's going to be talking about in his demo, so we won't go into length right now. But other important items are zero trust are the privileged identity management, which he's going to talk about in the demo, and access reviews, which if you haven't used access reviews and you have this license, it's a huge capability that you need to start looking at. It answers 4 questions about access. Who has or should have access to which resources? What are they doing with that access? Are there controls for managing that access? And can auditors verify that the controls are working? So this is the first level really where you start seeing some of this enhanced security with access reviews and just-in-time access and things like that. And entitlement management's a whole other great topic. I don't know if we have much time to talk about that today, but think of that as creating packages for access and permissions for new users, how you onboard users with packages and things like that. Adam, anything else you want to talk about here?
No, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. The one thing I will say for all of our partners that are on the line, probably the two features that we see leveraged the most, I think there's a reason that I think they drive a lot of direct value, and I think that they're also stuff that's not necessarily too difficult to implement, are conditional access policies and privilege identity management.
Yeah.
Everything in here is awesome and adds value, but those two in particular are stuff that really go a long way into helping to secure your environment and add some security trolls that's not normally the most impactful to your users. It's honestly more focused at admins, and coming from a security background, you're probably okay with jumping through a little bit of hurdles if it makes your environment more safe. Because the last thing you want is to have a breach in your environment. So those are probably the two features that are most leveraged from here and drive the most value. And because of that, that's probably what we're going to be mostly focusing on in the demo. But if
Yeah.
you're not using them today, wonderful things to do. Happy to kind of talk with you guys about best approach to go through and doing it. But most of our more security conscious customers have audits coming up that they're planning on passing, are leveraging both of those things pretty heavily.
Or if you're buying cyber insurance, right? I mean, the first question they ask is about privileged identity management typically. And if you're not doing that, you need to start doing it immediately. No one should have access to those global admin accounts 24 hours a day. So huge
Yep.
things there. Um, and okay, so we'll move on from here. And I think it's almost demo time. I think let's see what some of these things look like in action.
Sure.
So
So
I'm
I
gonna go
will
ahead and
go.
move over to the demo time, and I'll turn it over to you, Adam.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share my screen. We can kind of get into it. Like I said, as we get into everything we're going to be doing in the demo, I am probably going to mostly focus on two sections, which is going to be conditional access policy and privilege identity management. We're going to take a look at risky users and kind of what that looks like as well too. This will be a combination of looking at a Microsoft demo tenant, which we'll do at the very end. Some of the stuff that actually is in our GCC high environment that you can kind of see how we actually set up and work with some of our partners, and then my own lab environment as we go through and look at this and get an idea of everything that we're doing. So as we go into here, I want to start first and foremost with the idea of conditional access policies. So this is something we kind of hit on from a very high level. Conditional access policies are policies you're putting in place that manage the conditions that are required to be met for your users to be able to go through and log in. Now, by default, Microsoft has started, enforcing this one. You can see right here, it says Microsoft Manage, and it's basically all admins that access the admin portal need to go through MFA. If you buy new licensing out of the box from Microsoft and you go in, the first time you log in is your account that's a global admin that you get given the admin account to log in. It's going to require you to set up MFA because Microsoft is saying, hey, look, that's a bare minimum standard that we want people to be able to go through and do. But there's a lot of other stuff in there too. I'm going to start first and foremost by talking about templates. I don't think near enough people are aware of what exists in the template. It's a wonderful guided way. If you actually come up here at the top, you can see new policy from template. And there's actually a whole bunch of different areas you can go through and look that has the different options you can do. So for instance, we were talking about zero trust earlier. We can come into here, and here are a ton of
That's
zero
awesome.
trust
Yep.
templates that Microsoft has already gone through and done. It tells you what it's talking about doing at the start, and all you have to do is select it and basically go through and create it. So let's say you wanted to block legacy authentication. I can go through here, and the next step I go to review and create. It gives me a name, and it actually already sets all the options for me. I can see it right here. So I get an idea of what I need to do. And if I go through and create this, this is just out of the box going to give me a template that's blocking legacy authentication. This is kind of a fun one. Microsoft is going to be blocking all legacy authentication by default. They may already be doing that as just a general security policy. But if you wanted to proactively get ahead of it before then, you could go in and actually do it through conditional access policy. So again, there's a ton in here that you can go through and see. Actually, if you look at all the ones they have, it's a little overwhelming how many they have as you go through and look at it, but a ton of different options that you can go through and do. But let's say you want to take a little bit more advanced approach, or maybe what you're going through and looking at isn't necessarily a template. I want to show you guys how this looks and the different options you have of architecting these from scratch. So one of the common things that we have people go through and approach us inside of the government sector is a problem that's actually pretty easy to solve. It's the idea that, hey, a local county, a state, entity, something like that. I really don't have a lot of use cases where someone from outside of the US needs to be logging into our tenant. And that's a very easy conditional access policy to create that's going to give you some protection, because oftentimes if accounts get compromised, they get compromised by users in other jurisdictions and other states that are going through and logging in. So simply having a conditional access policy that says, okay, I'm going to require that people who are logging in be in the United States is a pretty easy win. So we're going to call this USA location only. And this is the thing. I'll actually even zoom in a little bit. I realize on dark mode, sometimes if it's small, it's hard to see. So these are the different options that they give you. First and foremost, you have to scope your assignment to your users. So if you come in here, you actually have the ability to either include or exclude, and you can include users or groups. So I can either say, I want this to account for everyone. I'm just going to do everyone. Or you can even specify individual specific users. So if you see, if I come in here and I actually can go through, I can actually go through and look for very specific users. So as I do this, this literally brings up my user list, and I can select individual users. I can type and search for them. You can see there's a ton of different users inside of this tenancy. Or I can actually go through and just say, I want to do directory roles. So maybe we're going to just target this at my global admins because I have a specific policy I want to do for them or something along those lines. But for now, because of what I'm actually going through and doing, I'm going to say I'm going to scope this at all users. I don't want anyone outside of the US logging into my tenancy. There's really not a reason for that. The next thing you go through and look at is target resources. So target resources allows you to scope what applications or what things you're actually preventing access to or putting conditions on access to inside of the policy. The most common thing here, again, used to be called all cloud apps, but you can basically say all resources. That means anything that they're accessing in your tenant, they'd need to go through and do it. If you want to get a little bit more specific, when you go through and look at the select, you can see they're going to have a whole bunch of different stuff in here. So if we actually look at the filter when they go in, they have different options that you can go through and select. But whenever you go through and look at all the different resources that they have when you're trying to do it, you can go through and select specific applications. So you can see there's some custom applications in here. But if I can get this to go away, there's actually a ton of different options in here that you're going to find familiar. So maybe I want to block all of Office 365, but maybe I have other enterprise applications that are registered with that, MFA access that I can do for third parties that I don't want to block out. Maybe what I want to go through and block is just SharePoint. I'm okay with people getting into their email remotely, but I want to protect the files that I have inside of my tenancy. So if you wanted to do that, you could actually go in here and just target SharePoint. So we could come in here and I could basically go in and say, all right, I'm going to go through and I'm going to limit all the SharePoint options. So no one has the ability to go in and log into SharePoint when they're going through in my tenancy. You have the ability to scope it where you want. Again, the most common thing we see here is all cloud apps, but just know you have the ability to go through and scope it as you see fit. Network is actually new. This gives you the ability to go through and define specific network locations. You'll actually see one of the options they have here is different things you can go through and do. This is actually going to be relevant for us if we actually go through and look at the different policies that we're going through and doing. One of the things that we are going to be concerned about is different locations. So if we actually come back here to the start, and we go down at the different stuff we have, there's a named location section here. And you can see I've done different stuff like that. I've added some countries, but one of the countries that I've added here that I wanted to show you guys is the US. All I did with this, there's a country's location option. You can come in here and select the country you want. So prior to getting in and starting this demo for you guys, I'd already gone in here and defined this. And if we go back into the policy creator, and I'll select these very quickly for us, we'll do all users. We will do all cloud apps again. So now on the network, when we go through and do it, I'm going to configure this and I'm going to select network and locations. And if you see, the US is one of the ones I can select now. So what I'm going through and doing is saying all users, all resources, targeting, going through and looking for the US. And then the conditions is what really matters here. This is how you can go through and do stuff. These are a little bit more complicated. You don't have to worry about the top ones. But when you go through and you look at device platforms, this is pretty cool. You can target just cell phones. You can target Windows, you can target Mac or Linux. So if you have certain platforms you're wanting to go through and look, maybe you'll let your users' cell phones connect, but you won't let, actual desktops connect from out of the country. You have the ability to specify that down. I've seen this used before with some of our clients too, where you can do stuff like, okay, I'm going to not allow cell phones at all connect to the system. I'm just going to take the stance that my users can't set up cell phones. We can come in and create a policy that says, okay, if they're coming from a cell phone platform, just outright deny access. And so you can go through here and look, again, as you go through and decide what you need, if you notice locations is already selected because I've already selected the US and network. So that's already selected for me as we go through and look at it. And then finally, they have different stuff you can go through and look at. The final section here is the actual access control. So what you're going to want to go through and do. So what I'm going to actually go through and do here is say, I'm going to grant access to people that are coming from the US. Because again, the condition that I've set is that the location is in the US. So what I would do here is I would say I'd grant access, and I probably want my users to do MFA. If I did that, I could basically be enforcing MFA for all my users and restricting connections to the country of the US in one policy. You could also maybe want separate policies, so I'm just going to grant access here and not necessarily go through and do other stuff. And we can select and we can save this. If you notice at the bottom, finally, you have the option of report only on or off. The report only feature is something I wish that, and sorry, I didn't select this, so we grant access and we'll actually just go through and say, require only one of them, and we'll require MFA, so we go through and do it. But so I actually really wish, so you notice they give me the option to include users. They'll always do this, whether you're scoped to it or not, because they don't want you to lock yourself out on. It's not going to matter here, because as we're going through and doing this, I am actually going through and setting it where I have it on report only. But if we went through and created this would create the policy that would go in and be there, and it would work. I think report only needs to be used more often. What report only does is it will give you reporting on what the policy would be doing and what the policy would be blocking without actually blocking your users. This is something you can see in like DLP and a couple other areas too. So that's kind of walking through the creation policy of the conditional access. There's a whole bunch of different stuff you could do. I would actually need to pair that with a second one. So I'd have one policy that said if the users are coming from the United States, go ahead and grant them access. And I have another policy that said if the users are coming from anywhere not the United States, block access. And those two together would work to say the only way you can log in is if you have an IP that's coming from the United States. If not, we're blocking it. Final shout out I'll give here, because I don't think this is used enough. You'll notice this what if button up here when you go through and look at it. If you actually go through and look at what if, this will actually give you the ability to fill out details. You can choose a user, a cloud app, even give them an IP address or a country, and fill out the conditions that you have for a user. And it'll actually tell you if any of the conditional access policies you have would block or allow access and what's going on. It's a wonderful troubleshooting and testing tool when you're trying to configure all this stuff.
Yeah, lots of granularity. I had no idea there was this much granularity, and I love the report only function. That's obviously very helpful. Kind of like monitoring mode, like for DLP settings and things like that. To always test before you turn on it.
100%. DLP is one of those things as well with my team that we're always recommend to turn on your DLP policies basically in an information gathering state and have them in report only mode and run those for a couple weeks to really get an understanding of what your users are sharing out. Conditional access policies can be the same way. Anyone who's been in IT long enough has made a mistake where they did something that was super impacting to the users, and you learned a lesson from that. So having the ability to go through and create a policy and say, hey, I think this is done right, but let me just put it in conditional access policy or in report only mode and let it run for like a week and make sure that half the company isn't getting blocked by this policy without actually, having a thing where you turn on the policy and 5 minutes later your help desk phone is just, lighting up with calls coming in. So just nice reassurance to have that.
We got a comment that says, what if option is not available in GCC High? I'm not sure if it's coming soon.
Yeah, sure. So the what if option should be there. I can actually check on my other one. I think I've tested this with other customers. I'm not sure on that, but we can actually check that on my environment that when we go through and talk about PIM, which is the next location, I'll do a little switch over and we can see if the what if is there on the GCC High. If it's not, that sucks, and I thought it would be there, but we can go through and look at it. It's right. Nice to have go through and doing testing, and realistically speaking, I will tell you guys, I am a huge fan of having a basic lab environment. By all means, you could replicate the same policy of what you're going through and doing in the cloud in a very basic lab. I pay for one E5 license and do what if testing there.
Yeah. That's a great point. I want to bring that point up. That's a great point. Like, if you just want to start playing with these features and trying them out, buy 1 or 2 licenses, especially if you're going to buy them for your admins for PIM purposes. You have the capabilities of that E5 or that Entra Plan 2 capability. Start playing with some of these capabilities in a safe way. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I wanted to, being cognizant of time, I wanted to go through and look at a couple other things first and foremost. So I wanted to look at privilege identity management. So this is actually a customer's tenant that we go through and we work with and we do that we are actively managing. Now, I wanted to show you guys how we go through and set this up. So if you notice, I'm logged into the account, I'm going in, but I like to show you what happens if I try to look at any of these sections right now. So let's say I try to go through and look at sign-in logs. It's going to give me this error and basically tell me I don't have access to this data. Please contact your global owner. This is what your end user would get if they went through and logged into the Azure portal and tried to go through and look at sign-in logs. So what you can actually go through and do, and you can notice I click on it a lot, you'll notice there's Microsoft Identity Privileged Identity Management, or PIM. As a heads up, if you just type in PIM, it comes up. So if you're trying to look through and find it, you haven't seen it before, you don't have to type out the whole long thing. You can just type in PIM. But when you go into here, they have different stuff going through. So how we have actually architected this is through a design of going back to zero trust and the idea of principle of least privilege. So if you actually go in and look, you have two different ways you can go through and approach this. You can approach this through RBAC roles inside of Azure, or you can actually go through and approach them on actual Azure resources. On this environment, because primarily what's being managed is M365, we've done the RBAC roles, and you can go through and see how these have been set up. So for my one account, I have the ability to turn on any of these 6 actions. Now, the idea or the key to this is that I'm not always just going through and activating global admin. If I did that, I would always be going through and getting global admin. It's the idea of the principle of least privilege. It's, let's say I'm just needing to look at some logs or look at some information but not make changes. I have the ability here that I can go in and do global reader. Or let's say I'm literally just going through and managing some stuff with some mailboxes or some exchange transport rules. I can do just exchange administer and go through and do that and basically choose a level of access that I need. But the key point here, and what we kind of talked about earlier, is by default, my account doesn't have any of these. I'll actually show you the approval process. Let's say I decide I want to do global admin. It's going to pull up here and it's going to go in, and you notice it's going to actually, by default, do 8 hours. I can adjust that how much I want. And then it actually forces me to give a reason for why I want to do this. If I just try to hit activate here, it's going to say, hey, you're missing the field. So I'm going to say, I am needing, I can spell. So come in here and say that I'm needing global reader to look at some logs. I don't need 8 hours. Maybe I only need 2 hours here so I can make sure that I get my stuff done. Come down here and activate, and you'll notice it goes through the process of going through and provisioning. So it says it's going for me for global reader, and it takes a little bit of time to go through and run. Once you start using this, I can tell you it's interesting. Some of the admin centers realize earlier than others that you've activated your role. For whatever reason, the Office 365 admin center sometimes takes the longest. But after you finish your activation, if you know the hyperlink of where you're going, you probably have access. The little button just hasn't opened up yet. So if, for instance, if I were to then go in here, and again, this is the government side. So if I go to portal.office365.us, you're going to notice I'm going to log in, and there's a very good chance I'm not going to have the, oh, I already do. So it did realize this time. So I could go in here and get into the admin center. Now that I've turned on global reader, I can go in here and view all the information that I need to and that I want to see inside of here. It's pretty nice for me to be able to go through and do that. The other way you can do that is what I have set up in my lab environment here. So you actually notice I don't have this set up necessarily in the way of RBAC roles. You can actually see I just have permanent global admin because this is my lab environment and I just mess around and do stuff in here. But I wanted to show you the other way you can go through and do that, and that's through Azure resources. So you can actually go through and assign stuff based off of resource group. You can assign this based off subscription, and you can do all the various different Azure roles. So I specifically have gone in here and set it up. So if I want owner access to my work group, I can actually come in here and activate it and give myself owner permissions. Similar to what we were going through and talking about earlier, 99% of the time, I am not sitting, I don't have owner access. I can't go in and make changes to the resources that are in there. The real benefit of this is if one of your accounts actually gets compromised, it's obviously a huge deal if it's one of your, main admin accounts or your global admins that get compromised, because that thing gives them access to basically do everything. Luckily, by tying stuff behind here, oftentimes, even if an account gets compromised, they don't realize that it has PIM or just-in-time access. And so to them, it's just like they've accessed an individual user. So they will try to go through and do the normal stuff they do with a compromised account, maybe try to go through and send out emails or access the resources, and they will just essentially have compromised an individual user rather than your entire tenancy. It's actually super nice and super easy to do. And again, this is something that a lot of our customers that are more security or compliance conscious are doing, and we're starting to see more often as we go through and do it. So strong recommend. This is something you guys go through and check out if you have E5 licensing or you're willing to do the step up, the Entra ID plan too. Definitely something I recommend for all of your elevated accounts for admins. And again, my whole team does this with every single one of our customers. It's really easy to do. It's not super intrusive when you go through and do it, and it's just an easy win from the security perspective.
Perfect.
So the last thing that I wanted to show, and I actually went out of my way to be bad, is the idea of risky sign-ins. You start going through and looking at Entra ID Plan 2, you start to get actionable things. So Entra ID Plan 1 will tell you if there are risky users or risky sign-ins, but that's all it will do. Once you start going through and getting Entra ID Plan 2, it'll actually give you the ability to start doing some automations around it. So if you were kind of paying attention when we looked at conditional access earlier, you could actually go through and set some conditional access policy based off of the risk level of users. So when we come in here and we're looking at the idea of this is the Entra portal, I'll speak of this briefly. This is a new thing. A lot of you guys have probably never done anything in here. It's only been around for 4 to 6 months, and all of the functionalities here used to exist elsewhere. But I can tell you, as someone who's been doing this a long time, getting to everything you needed for Entra was a little complicated before. It was sometimes in M365. It was sometime in like the settings or the organization structure in the M365 admin portal. If not there, it was often in the Entra tab of Azure, but you kind of had to click around and go through and find the Entra.Microsoft.com or Entra.Microsoft.us if you're in the government, is a one-stop shop for all things Entra. And specifically as we go through and look, there's this risky activity section. And I'm going to come in here and right away you can see it's identified that I have an at-risk user. And so I can click in here to try to get an idea of why this user is at risk and go through and do it. And you can see as we go through and do it, the risky sign-ins, this will actually populate for me. You're going to notice that my user 2 days ago, which was totally not me on a VPN on my mobile phone, signed into both Pakistan as well as, I believe, Hong Kong or Malaysia, one of the two. And so obviously it doesn't like the fact that it's gone in and done that, and it will highlight these assuming it populates in for it. Part of what I like about this, we'll actually try to look at this in the main thing as we go through and do it with the risky sign-ins. It will go through and show the risk sign-ins, and specifically this risk detections. It will tell you why it's identifying these as risky sign-ins. So you can go through and see in the last 7 days, there's sign-ins for me that was going in, you can see here in Hong Kong. So I had several sign-ins in Hong Kong, and I had one in Pakistan as well. And you are noticing the reason why this is flagging is a couple reasons. This is a new country or region. It's never seen my user log in at Hong Kong or Pakistan before. So the fact that suddenly there's a successful login that goes through. Now, the interesting thing, I have MFA on this account, but still, even with having MFA, the user is able to log in. We all know, unfortunately, MFA can be beaten sometimes. So it's really nice that it has these detections that go through and says, hey, this is a new country or a new region, or this is an anonymous IP. It could also be this is a new ISP we haven't seen before from this user. There's a whole bunch of different things that all contribute to what they consider as the risk score. You add up enough of them and it will increase the risk factors of your user and ultimately make them a risky user. And then I can couple this and say, oh, okay, well, if you flag a user as a risky user, I want to immediately challenge them with an MFA. I can put that into an automation through conditional access policies if I have Entra ID Plan 2. So it's a kind of cool thing. Think of this as entry level using machine learning and AI automation to take some of the security stuff that would happen that might be questionable or you might be uncertain about and add in automation where you don't have to be up in the middle of the night to decide, oh man, someone logged in from India. I don't recognize that IP. I need to do something. You can add in these automations. I'm sure you start to see some of the value with the Entra ID Plan 2 suite or what you're going through and doing. And I know we're getting close on time. Final thing I wanted to show you guys is I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a preview here when we go through and look at it with what the idea is twofold. One, so you'll see the risk detected email comes in. This happens with your automation. So now that it's happened, I get emailed. And then if you actually notice, I actually get this Entra ID Protection Weekly Digest. That is actually tied in when you go through and look at the Entra portal with the idea of ID governance. So I actually provisioned out another account here in a Microsoft Lab environment. What I actually wanted to show you guys is some of the stuff that we can actually go through to look at with identity governance. This is getting more into the Entra ID suite that Ken's going to talk about here in a second, but this actually gives you a landing portal that kind of gives you an insight into everything going on in your world of identity. So we'll talk about user accounts that are created. You can configure lifecycle workflows. Ken will talk about what that is, but you can do stuff like, I know I'm going to have new users starting in 2 weeks. I can do the work beforehand to set up their accounts, but not give them access to the stuff that they need access to. They're actually going to start. Or, oh, hey, I know Dave's going to be retiring. As part of our due diligence of the IT staff, we need to make sure we're removing his access from resources. We need to make sure we're backing up his data, giving access to his previous manager. Lifecycle workflows can do all that stuff for you in an automated and approachable way. So you don't have to wait to have a task that you can only do once the user starts. You can go in and set up this stuff and set up these automations and have it prepared to go in and do it. But I just wanted to kind of show you guys this. This is the future direction that Microsoft is going with the Entra Suite. It's really interesting as you go and dig through it. They'll show you interesting graphics to kind of give you an overview of all the stuff that you're going through and doing, of the types of things that you can see, and of the different features that you have. The one thing I'm going to give a shout out to, too, as I'm handing it back to Ken, I mentioned briefly in our start of the conversation when you go in and look at it, the idea of identity governance and specifically identity protection. That's going to the idea of doing like facial recognition for your logins into anything that Entra ID is accessing. You can already do that with Windows Hello if you're going through and doing it on a Windows login. But I think that is the future state of where we are moving. Obviously, having a facial scan on your Authenticator app as a way to go through and log in is a much more secure approach than otherwise. Ken and I were laughing as we were preparing for this. My dad is a prototypical boomer. I love him to death, but he literally has stick-it notes posted on his monitor of his passwords to get into stuff because he can't remember them. And that is the type of stuff that we are approached with as security and IT resources, working with various different, age groups and people different acumen and technology. So having something where you're going entirely away from passwords, where it's no longer a user has a username and password, but they have a username and a facial scan that they're doing on their phone, I really expect that to become the norm as we continue to progress in the security architecture and the security baselines of what we're going through and doing. 5 years from now, I think specifically in the government sector, that's going to be what the default is for people. You no longer have a username and password, or you maybe have one, but you don't use it to log in. You have your username that you put in, and then you have to look at your cell phone for a facial scan, and that will be the requirement to get in. Ken, I'm going to toss it back to you. And I haven't forgot about the what if question from James. I will actually go in and look at that while you continue on the presentation.
Yeah, now's a great time to put some questions in the chat. We're going to get to them in about 5 minutes from here. I know we got about 15 minutes left, so now is a great time to put some questions in or get ready to think about some questions. The new Microsoft Entra Suite integrates 5 capabilities: private access, internet access, ID protection, ID governance, and face check in verified ID. Entra Suite is an add-on to P1 and P2, and if you have the P2, there's some special pricing. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just telling you that you need to talk to your account executive if you have P2 or M365, E5, EG5, that there's special pricing to move you up to this new suite, because obviously it's cheaper to buy it as a suite as usual than it is to buy it piecemeal. So there's also some options to buy certain capabilities that I'm going to talk about here separately as well. They are interest to you as well. So really quickly, I'm not going to go into too much depth. Altogether, this all helps with a zero trust access solution. It secures the internet gateway. It provides ID governance. It provides ID protection, and of course, the verified ID. It's one unified experience, as you saw with the dashboard, which is going to be super helpful and more easy for admins to operationalize. The ability to streamline onboarding through ID governance and entitlement management is going to be huge, and I think we're going to see more of that as we move forward. Finally, policies that provide dynamically adjusted conditional access is going to be big. It's really just an add-on to the existing Plan 2 stuff where we have risk-based conditional access. So let's talk about each of one of these really quickly. First up is the private access. Private access is intended to replace traditional client VPN solutions. It leverages a global secure access client, and it uses proxies inside a private network to establish a connection between the client and an application. So think about this as an alternative to your VPNs moving forward.
Yeah, it's basically an identity-focused VPN access without having to put the infrastructure in place that a VPN requires. You're just leveraging what Microsoft has given you. It's nice.
Yep. Next up is the web content filter, the internet access capabilities. It uses a SaaS-based secure web gateway to protect your users and data from online threats. As organizations move to online and remote work, it becomes more difficult and costly to route all client internet traffic to a private network and then the client firewall for content filtering. So Internet access works with conditional access policies and global secure access client to ensure a web content filter policy on the client. So some interesting stuff there. Then we have the ID protection. This provides the same risk-based conditional access policies and dynamic sign-in assessment as P2. And this is why there's a discount, obviously, because this part really isn't new in Entra Suite. It's really just an add-on. It's obviously the plan one people would have to upgrade to this. So obviously that's why it's included in the suite. Same capabilities though. Adam talked about the ID governance options and the capability there in the dashboard. It lets you balance security and productivity to ensure the right people have access to the right resources the right amount of time. It's going to give you lots of dashboarding activities. It also provides and shows you the identity lifecycle automation, where it is in the process, how many things are complete, coming up. And even on-premise data can be done with these entitlement management. So lots of capabilities here. And if you have third-party products like Worktime or Workplace and other HR products like that, there's integrations into there to tie those in to do your onboarding and offboarding. So that's where you're actually paying for that business value there. And then finally, Entra Suite offers a facial verified ID check. This is a premium feature for Entra Verified ID, as the name implies. This provides a high assurance verification with facial matching, and it works with Microsoft Authenticator app and the device camera to verify the user's identity. It's not bound to the local device like a Windows Hello. The face information is stored in the cloud and processed with AI to verify the user's identity.
So in theory, you could do this while you were like traveling and didn't have access to your original phone. As long as you had a camera, you could go through and you could do it. And again, that's part of the reason why I think that's going to hopefully blow up in the future, just because from a security admin's perspective, like that's the dream, right? Like users don't have passwords that they can accidentally compromise by clicking on something they shouldn't. Instead, it's a Face ID and way more secure.
Yeah. So we're at the questions part. We really just had we didn't have any questions really that came in except for just understanding the product portfolio a little bit better is what I saw. So we're certainly happy to answer any questions right now as well as we can. These are new products, right? So there's not much access to demo labs and things like that for the suite part at least. We're still wrapping our hands around these things. So if you're interested, maybe we'll have another show in about 6 months or something like that where we can actually dive deeper into entitlement management with lifecycle workflows and things like that.
Yeah, and my encouragement while we were waiting on questions, I really think almost every organization across the board could benefit from some baseline conditional access policies and turning on PIM for their admins. So I'd really kind of challenge or encourage everyone on this call. Those are approachable things. Even if you're not super comfortable with it, you can reach out to us. We can give you guidance in less than an hour, kind of how you approach that and what you need to do. And they're definite security wins, and something that I would argue most modern companies really need to be considered putting in place because they're not super impactful, but provide a pretty big cushion from the security aspect. Thanks,
Adam. All right. Moving ahead, we as part of this, I always do some research. I build, I find lots of URLs and things that I think are really great. Definitely, you'll have access to the PowerPoint afterwards and the recording. Feel free to check out all the monthly blog that we wrote, as well as all these links and videos. The videos are really great too. So definitely take a second to take a look at this if you want to go a little bit deeper. If you have questions about what's available and which clouds, I know there's probably questions about what's available in GCC and so forth. Check out the Entra feature availability in different clouds link, and that'll give you the answers of what's available now and whatever.
So Ken, I have a question. How self-conscious have you become about Entra since preparing?
I think about it every time I say the word now. I'm like, yep, just messed up again. Yeah. But I was surprised by the maybe because I gave it away when I first started talking, but 91% of the people actually were right, and I guess I was in the 8%.
You answered the question right away, so there was probably some cheating, but yeah.
There's a something about interest. What's the question?
Yeah, there was James and I going back and forth where he said he didn't have what if, so I checked the
Oh,
government
gotcha,
tenant I
gotcha.
logged into and did. What licensing? Again, we can chat after this, James. We don't have to spill your beans in the middle of the chat. I'd be interested in what licensing you had turned on and stuff like that as well too. But definitely reach out to us. If nothing else, we can get on a call for 15 minutes and see if we can figure it out.
Sure. All right. We'll certainly hang on for a little bit longer for questions, but as we wrap up, I just want to remind everybody that, as part of the Already Own It program, you have access to all these benefits, the monthly newsletter, all the workshops. We have like 22 different workshops available to you for the asking. If you're not onboarded to Already Own It, please let us know. We'll shoot you out a little onboarding 15-minute meeting just to make sure that you're aware of all the benefits and get your agency on or organization onboarded to the program. Again, this is no cost, no sales. Happy to do these things. These are one-on-one workshop sessions with you all. Missing from this list is some Power Platform workshops that we have on like a fundamentals, a deep dive, and a licensing conversation. So, if you're interested in any of these workshops, please reach out to Kim Snyder. She's the coordinator of all these things, and she'll get you hooked up with an overview. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll give a shout out to this. I'm as someone who has not always been at Planet, I worked somewhere else previously before coming to here. I'm super impressed by the level of investment that Planet made. Just so you guys know, some of our most technical and most senior resources are people that deliver some of these workshops. I'm involved in a couple of them. Multiple of the architect and senior engineer people from my team are as well, and that's true across the board for the East Division. Planet really does put a lot of effort into making sure that these drive value. And again, honestly, some of the most senior resources we have are the people that are delivering some of this content. So if you're not taking advantage of some of these and you see a topic that is interesting to you, I kind of challenge you guys to give it a try because it's definitely worth it. And definitely something that under other circumstances we'd be charging customers for as part of the service we're delivering. And it's something that they offer completely free in the interest of our partnership.
And as you can see, there's something for everybody, whether you're an Azure person or security person, M365 person, you're doing Power BI, you're doing, endpoint security. There's something for everybody here. So definitely take us up on these offers. Again, no sales, no pressure at all. These are really, we don't even invite the salespeople to these meetings. So I'll leave it at that. Please reach out to Kim Snyder if you're interested in any of these sessions. And thanks, Adam, for the good shout out there.
Yep.
Our next session is going to be on May 22nd. If you have a topic you'd like us to discuss, please put it in the chat window or reach out to your account team. We'll stick around for a few more minutes if you have other questions. And as always, we'd love to know how we did today. So please answer the poll I think that Casey's going to put up here in a second as far as the usefulness of today's session. We'd love to follow up with you. So please let us know. So thank you for attending the webinar. We hope that you now understand how this powerful solution can revolutionize your organization's identity requirements for security and efficiency. In summary, Entra ID offers control over access management, ensuring the right individuals access the right resources at the right time. Using behavioral analytics and machine learning, Microsoft Entra ID enhances security and streamlines operations. The new Entra Suite simplifies zero trust architecture, consolidates costs, modernizes infrastructure, improves user experience, and maintains a consistent security policy across all users and workloads. We look forward to continuing this conversation with you all, so please reach out to us. As always, don't hesitate. Please reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you some more. A big shout out and thank you to Adam for joining me today. Nice job with the demo. And if there's something you want to see or have a private conversation with Adam, please let us know. That's a wrap. Again, we'd love to know if there's any other questions that you guys have.
Thanks, guys. I also like every time you say Entra, I can just hear the little bird on your shoulder questioning you.
There was a question that says the meeting schedule is about to end. Action items for this meeting.
That was just note taker. That was a note taking app that was going through and just talking about what we talked about in the system.
Yep, I see that now. Fireflies, got it. Yep. So yeah, at least it captured the right note. Yeah, if you haven't done MFA, you're not doing privileged identity management, now's the time to do it. Absolutely.